Hello and welcome to the SurveYOUR podcast with James Baker and Jon Lever. Two chartered surveyors embarking upon a social media journey, locked in a virtual room with nothing better to do than to discuss everything surveying. And some things not.
Hi everyone, latest episode of the podcast. Good to, well, not see or hear you. We don't do any of that, do we? But anyway, it's just me and Jon today. But before we crack on and talk about the topic for today, I'll pass over to Jon for some feedback.
Yeah, hi James, hi everyone as well, to all of our listeners. Oh, just before I do give some feedback, we've just hit 2,000 downloads.
Did you know?
Yeah. I
saw
2,000
downloads.
Download system today going, hey guys, you've just downloaded 2,000. Well, do you know how long it took me to download 2,000 copies?
Well, to be fair, I did a couple hundred.
That's just a big thank you to our listeners, though. It's great to have you guys downloading them and listening to them. It means a lot to us as well. It's nice that you know we
it does
see that happening. So yes. On that note, let's just talk about someone who's given us some feedback. So Stuart Bradley, we always like to give people a shout out. Stuart said, "Frank discussion. Thanks, gents. Also followed a similar long-winded." Long and winding road leaving school in 1987. So that would probably be a similar sort of time to me. Labouring the summer, doing a BTEC foundation, then on to ONC, HNC in civil engineering. Subsequently got MICE, so that's the Institute of Civil Engineering, isn't it? And MCIOB. Since gone on to do a Masters in Building Surveying. Well, some people have to. And have achieved ASOC RICS, so well done on that. That was 2019, so that's a couple of years ago. And then finally, ripe old age of 49, so yeah, he's a little bit behind me. Sitting my APC for MRICS this year. So Stuart, we wish you all the best. Thanks for giving us some feedback. As always, if you want to give us some feedback, you can go on to survepod.com, which is over here. Web address on screen if you're watching us on YouTube. So survepod.com, and on there we've got our our feedback form. And also you can listen to the podcast off the web page as well. So there we go. Yeah, so 2,000 downloads, and someone else has given us some feedback. That's cracking.
Yeah, so thanks, Stuart. And hopefully enjoying listening to it. But yeah, thanks for the feedback, and all the best with the rest of your career. But yeah, feel free to give us some more feedback on anything else that you want to, and it's always good to hear. So today, then, as I said, it's just me and Jon. We haven't got any guests today, which has been a while, I think, since we did one where there were no guests of any description. So good just for the two of us. Plenty more talking time. I might get a look in this time. You never know. Anyway, today we're going to talk about COVID passports. Very topical. Something that is going to impact all of us in our lives, but also in work, no doubt, and in our industry itself. So we'll probably talk a bit generally, but we'll also talk a little bit about the impact it might have or how we see it in our own industry. So we'll start out then first, Jon. We do this with kind of questions or headings as such that we'll talk about. So I think the first port of call really is, what is a COVID passport?
Yeah, well, from the reading around it that I've done, it basically says the word passport is the wrong word. It should be called a health certificate or something along those lines. Allegedly, it's meant to have details about whether you've been vaccinated or you've had COVID and now you're immune. I didn't know that if you had it, you were then classed as being immune. I thought there was just, you've recovered, which is great, and I've not heard of many people recovering too brilliantly from it, mind you. But I thought there were other variants and things that you still had to be careful of. So, but anyway, so that's what they're saying.
I think immunity is only allegedly, and they still don't know enough about the illness, do they? But I think allegedly for a short window of time, it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, it's all very strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
As always, just be careful. So yeah, so it's talking about having information about if you've had it, if you've been vaccinated, or if you have a negative or have recently had a negative test. Do you know what the thing is though? One is they're talking about it being an app on the NHS app, or being a feature of the NHS app. But I was thinking about it. I mean, my kids, your kids aren't really in school properly yet, are they? But my kids, oh, actually, your wife might have to do this as a teacher. But my kids have had to do these flow tests every week, a couple of times a week. And
The lateral flow, yeah.
yeah, have you been doing those? Yeah, they're always good.
I have been doing them.
Yeah.
I started last week. I took the view that I would do them purely because of work I've been doing. I've been going into schools, I've been going into people's houses to do the work that I've been doing. So I felt that it was probably the right thing to do, ethically, if you like, and morally, for me to make sure that I test myself regularly and make sure that whilst I've had one vaccination, I felt it was the right thing to do the lateral flow test. You can get them for free, and it just means that one, I know that I'm not bringing it, or I know if I've got it, and then I can make sure that I'm careful around my wife and my son, but also that I'm not going into somebody else's house doing a survey, or I'm going into another school doing some project work or survey work, actually taking the illness with me and not even knowing I'm carrying it. So that was kind of why I did it. Just I thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, I do it a couple of times a week because of the kids, basically, and the school sends home test kits for the kids, and we go and get our version from the local sort of distribution centre. So I'm guessing. I was wondering actually where, if you were doing, which we don't know because there's not enough information, I don't think, out there about these passports or certificates. What test and who's testing to then say that you are negative, if that makes sense, because they're not going to rely on people with their own sort of flow testing, are they? I wouldn't have thought.
Well, I don't know, because they seem to be relying upon it at the moment, because I register every test online.
Yeah, well, I do the same, but you
so each test,
online anyway, couldn't you? Because it's only a QR code. It doesn't give the actual answer, does it? You don't send a picture of it. So
no, you don't send a picture of it, and you just log it as being negative, positive, or a void test.
Yeah.
Simple as. But yeah, they seem to be relying upon that as a system. But who knows? I mean,
have you had a void test?
How
putting vodka or whiskey?
I haven't had one yet.
Work,
Yeah, no, not had one yet.
You've not had it. Yeah, that's something to aspire to, isn't it? Do you know what? I was even thinking. Talking of which, I've got one here in front of me, and I was even thinking that once this is done, I thought it might be quite a nice art installation, because we've got so many of these things to frame it and put it on the wall. What do you think? Sort of a bit weird. Yeah.
Do you not throw it in the bin?
No. No. Keep them. So
are you keeping them for you? Are you putting them in your keepsake box to remember them for a long time after the pandemic?
Talk to the grandkids about, look, this is when I was tested negative, or I could make something with them, or it's just the internal hoarder. Don't worry. Anyway, I thought we've already gone off the topic, and we have down that very strange alleyway that we tend to do. So so I don't know where the testing or what it's going to be or who's going to be doing the testing. I was reading one up about. There was in Denmark, I think they were talking about having a system, because they tend to be a little bit further ahead of these things than us. And they were talking about actually having centres where you could go and have a test, and then it would be uploaded to your, so someone else is verifying that you've kind of done the test. They're also talking about then short-term tests of using these for going to things like the FA Cup. Is that the end of, I don't know when that is. When's that? The end of May?
Well, funnily, I mean, they've in football, they've already, so the FA Cup semi-final last weekend on Sunday, they did have some supporters in the stadium to watch the game.
Okay.
It was only 4,000 or something, which, given that Wembley Stadium holds 80,000 or so, then not a lot of people. But the snooker World Championships that are indoors, being held at the Crucible in Sheffield at the moment, do have an audience watching.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. Well, they're talking about...
So it started, the trials have started, because the suggestions are that once the football Euro 2020, as it should have been, but 2021 this summer, once the football starts, England, etc., then they're looking to have people back in stadiums, not necessarily at capacity to start with, but if the stages of coming out of lockdown and releasing restrictions are to be believed, and that they follow the path that was set out by Boris some time ago, by the middle of that tournament, we'll have no restrictions left in this country anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting because the one that interests me, and obviously football doesn't interest me, as well, you know, but the one that does interest me is cinema, because I've really missed going to the cinema, because I used to have one of these cinema cards that you could just go whenever you want, as many times.
Yeah.
And that's something I've missed, but they were talking about it for cinemas, but I'm still, you see, I'm still a bit twitchy about it. I have to say, I'm really a bit of a wuss when it comes to it.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because you've had your first vaccine as I have.
Yeah.
And they give you that little card, don't they? Everybody gets that little card,
Yeah.
and it's got your type of vaccine on it, the date and date of your next test or whatever, and next vaccine, should I say? And yeah, it was kind of like they're giving you that. Is that the precursor to the COVID passport, or
Well,
do you carry that around with you? Go, look, I've had two.
Yeah, they're saying it's going to be something like that. They're saying that the app's not really going to be around, I think, until the summer sort of time. Mind you, what was the one you had on your little card? Did they write down which vaccine you had?
I have it here.
Oh, okay.
So they put down the name of the vaccine and the batch number and the date it was given.
Oh, okay. Which one did?
And also my name and date of birth at the top.
Oh yeah, I've got a batch number. Yeah,
I won't show that side because people do watch. I won't show the side with my personal details on.
Yeah. Don't want any of your personal details there, mate. I'll just so don't worry. Yeah, mine says was it RABIES? Okay. Did you have that one?
What?
Spell it out, rabies, mate.
Oh, rabies.
It's a joke. I know it fell flat, but you know
it did fall. Sorry, I mean,
popped into my
your
head.
jokes are bad at the best of times, but that is really one of your words.
You dashed it on the rocks for me. Well done. No, okay. So yes, so cinema, theatres, clubs, football stadiums. So they're talking about all of that, but doing a trial. But
yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a trial, is it? It's going to go on for a while, and it's going to come round. This is what it is. There's a lot of people kicking off, though. They're a bit worried about it. You know, do you remember back in the day, everyone shouting about the compulsory ID cards, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember when they were mooted. Yeah, when there was discussion about them happening. And I can't even remember why they were suggesting those. It all comes down to privacy and things, doesn't it? And everything else. And it's a funny old one, but morally. And
driver's license already. I've got a picture card driver's license.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You already have ID anyway in a passport or a driving license. Yeah. So is there any real difference?
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, how do you... Well, okay, so that's kind of what it is. There's also stuff in there. They were talking about... something along the lines of like a certificate to work as well. You know, you might be restricted on being able to work if you didn't have this. But they're also talking about it not being relevant to sort of outdoor venues, pubs, gardens, and things like that. So it's more so for indoor big events. I guess is what they're thinking. What else did I read about? I think that was and obviously. Travel, international travel. Now, you know, we've had vaccine requirements. You and I have travelled around a bit, and we've had to go and have jabs, and then have a card saying when we had that jab. And what was one I've had in the past was yellow fever in the past.
Encephalitis and
you know. So is it any different to that? Don't know.
Is it?
You know, is there a more sinister angle? I mean, there's been a lot of people being worried about counterfeiting and fraud, and actually, I did read there was an article saying that there is, unfortunately, an underground out there who are creating counterfeit negative certificates for people to travel, and it's just
what's interesting though with that. So it's a valid point you make about the international travel and stuff, and that we've had vaccines for various other things depending on which part of the world we've travelled to, but you never have to prove that.
Yeah, but you had to have a card. I had to bring I remember carrying it being signed by whoever stuck the thing in my arm and the date it was done.
I had like a vaccination booklet or something.
Yeah, one of those little card. It was like folding off a little card booklet, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you never had to prove it.
No, no, that's very true. You didn't ever have to show it, did you? You just had to make sure that,
No.
you know, it was the Foreign Office was suggesting you should take this or have this vaccination to go here, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was advice rather than you must have these for travel. I think that's the difference.
Yeah. And I also read
That
that
gets
there was,
people upset.
yeah, I also read that there was worry that it could turn into a sort of a two-tier system, and exactly the point you said. You know, your wife can't have, or you don't want to, that she doesn't want to have it because currently expecting your next child.
Yeah,
Um,
well, yeah. As I said to you before, we
absolutely.
kind of started on the podcast. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're giving my wife's. I mean, we'll discuss this probably in personal feelings and things like that. But yeah, because she's pregnant, and it's still, it's one of those things. There's not enough data, there's not enough research, and you don't want to have a potential problem in that situation. We don't want there to be problems for the baby, once it's born, or even during the
Yeah.
pregnancy.
And
So
also we don't know enough about these vaccines.
we don't know
Put
enough
it into
about it
our
from
own
that
bodies, isn't it?
perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, no, I can absolutely see that. I mean, what about I mean, my kids are early teens, but they won't have anything in the vaccine department for a while yet, if anything. I'm assuming they're going to be vaccinating teenagers once they get there, aren't they?
yeah, I think they are. I think that
Yeah.
the intention was that by September, I think the whole population will have had
Mm,
um,
mm,
at least one vaccine, I
mm,
think, or something.
yeah. It's an
So
interesting.
I'd assume that would include children, but
Yeah.
maybe it's only to a certain age,
Yeah,
or
I thought they
above
were
a
saying,
certain age.
yeah, sort of over 11 or something like that. They're still
Yeah.
very vulnerable. Now, this is really interesting topic though, because remember back in the day, only a year ago, we were probably chatting around this, and then when we started thinking about doing the podcast, which was what from sort of back end of Christmas time, um, yeah, I kind of brought up the point of, how do you think you're going to feel, going back to an office, going to a meeting when 10 people in the room and 8 people are vaccinated and 2 aren't. And then you kind of think, oh, will you then start to, the old unconscious bias kicks in. Let's go for the discrimination on this one, and we're going to then discriminate against these people, not sit too close to them and make them feel ostracised and everything. It's a bizarre one, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's the thing is I don't really have any worries or concerns over it. I mean, because we've spoken about that element of it. We did that in the predictions podcast. I think
Mm.
sort of kind of touched on it maybe, but
Yeah.
my personal view is that so I went to the pub last Friday night. I went to the pub on Wednesday this week, and I had a friend round in my pub in the garden to watch a football match because it's open air, or it's only got a roof on it. It's open sides. Earlier in the week as well. So I've kind of been in environments already where there's been lots of people. Now it's well managed. You go in, you scan the NHS app, you wear a mask if you're walking around or anything. You just take your mask off once you sat down, and
Poke a straw through it.
sorry.
Can you poke a straw through it?
I'll take your mask off. And you know what? But but it's safe. I've not felt. There's been
Yeah.
lots of people, and largely okay. Wednesday, it's Friday night. I was out in a beer garden. Well, everywhere I've been outside because that's the only place you can do that now. But I even had a meal at Wednesday lunchtime in a restaurant, but we were outside. So, but it's kind of fine. It doesn't. You just wear a mask. I
Yeah.
think it's almost become a part of what we do now. And I didn't go out there worrying that I was going to catch anything or become ill or anything, because you as soon as you can go inside to use toilet facilities and things like that. And if you're doing that, you put your mask on and then you wash your hands and everything. So
Mm.
you never or in and around close quarters with other people, other than you probably whilst you're social distancing or whatever, but you're with you people you're probably more close to are those people that you've gone out with rather than complete strangers.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Someone said to me that they kind of felt the whole vaccination and I guess this passport certificate idea as well was the government's way of sort of vaccinating and sterilising the whole nation, and it was just like, seriously, you need to go and have a drink. Something.
Yeah, which to be honest, I've greatly enjoyed being able to go to a pub and have a pint again.
Yeah, it
I have
wouldn't
to
interest
say.
me, unfortunately, but yeah.
No, but it's been great.
Yeah.
So nice just to get out.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, I agree. I agree. Do you know, actually, on that note, I agree with what you're saying because I put my back out. I trapped a nerve in my lower back about a month ago, and I've spent the last month probably twice a week going in to see my chiropractor in his practice where they wipe everything down, but we go in with a mask. He's got a mask on and everything, but it's no different. I mean, how many people go through that practice every day? You know, the treatment only lasts 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So I'm one of probably 20, 30 people who are wandering through his venue and through his treatment room. So yeah, it's an interesting. I think it'll. I don't want to become complacent with it. I think because I think it's still quite a risk. There is a risk there, but I think we will have to get on with our lives, won't we?
exactly. I think that's it. So
Yeah, we
yeah,
may have just strayed into how we feel personally about it there.
yeah, I
How do you
think we
feel
did really.
personally
I
about
mean,
it, James.
so me personally, I don't agree with a passport or whatever you want to call it, fax, a health card, whatever. I just don't agree with it. I think we live in a country that is where we have freedom of choice,
Mm.
and I don't think there should be. And also, we have this whole, we've got the Equality Act, and we've got conversations all the time around, equality and making sure that there's no discrimination. And yet this is exactly going in the face of all of that and saying, well, we are going to be discriminating if you don't have the vaccine. Well, why should people not have a choice? It's their health at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I get the argument that there might be made about, yeah, but it's highly contagious, this, that, and the other. But there's lots of arguments for lots of illness, and we've, I just don't. I don't think that it's the right way to go to have an actual ID card, passport, whatever it is, to say you have or you haven't been. I think, if enough people are doing the right things and enough people are vaccinated, etc., you kind of touched on it. We're going to have to live with it anyway. We've got to live our lives again.
Yeah.
And this is a virus that will probably mutate and become something like the flu. It won't become so harmful.
Exactly. I mean, the flu. I was invited to have a flu jab this year, and because of obviously the COVID jabs and all that, I didn't have one. To tell the truth, I didn't do the research whether it would make any difference or not. But probably next year and onwards, I certainly will. I'm kind of getting of the age where I kind of feel I ought to go and do that sort of thing, and just for my own protection and stuff. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be any different to the flu, and the flu kills people every year. And there is an acceptable percentage, and they talked about this on one of the briefings I remember listening to, going, well, as long as we can get 75-80% or whatever it is of the nation vaccinated, that's the same sort of thing, or we get the death rate under, I don't know, arbitrary figure, 10,000 people a year, then that's where we're at. And that's the same as what we might have with flu. And it was just like, yeah, actually, you're right. I think it's just going to be the same sort of thing. And it just becomes part of what we do. There is a small conspiracy theorist knocking about in my head somewhere, thinking that it's just nature doing its balancing act, and going, oh,
well, that's a new conspiracy theory, because the only conspiracy theories I've seen and heard are those of the government and
oh no,
the
I
world
think my thought was it's the older nature out there's gone. There's too many of these parasites on this bit of land. We need to knock a few off. So that was a thought process. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I personally, I don't really care either way whether I have a barcode on my phone or not. What I would be worried about is positive or negative discrimination in whichever direction you go with it. So are we going to positively discriminate against those who haven't had it? Are we going to positively discriminate against those who have had it? Are we going to positively discriminate against those who, well, we'll give you the choice if you want to come to the meeting or not, or you can attend virtually. But if you attend virtually, that's probably not an acceptable way of doing it, and all of these different things. And we talked about this, didn't we, in the workplace, in the podcast. We talked about the future of the workplace. And I think there's a lot to be said and a lot to be thought about how we take that forward. That, you know, again, it's that whole issue of ethics and things move on and we have to change with the times. So are we going to end up with a lot of unconscious bias around the fact of what we believe or what we think or what the government tells us, or what our friends tell us, and that's going to create,
I mean, I guess it's different for me because, for example, if they bring it in whilst my wife is still pregnant and she isn't having a vaccine whilst she's pregnant, then that will dictate that she can't, for instance, depending on what the restrictions are, what you've got to show it at, might well mean that she can't go to certain places, which I think is completely and utterly wrong. Because why should she be forced to have the vaccine? Why should anybody be forced to have the vaccine? They don't know if that vaccine, any of them, could cause any long-lasting damage or health issues for her or the baby. So I think nobody should be forced into it, and that's why I think, from my one little, I completely am on board. If people don't want to have it, then I think it has to be a personal choice. That's the country we live in. That's the world that we've always lived in Britain, and I don't think it should change.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting as well because the other bits of articles that I'd read as well saying yes, absolutely, international travel, because you're going to countries which are going to stipulate it for their entry requirements, and you're coming back from countries where we might as a nation go, actually we think that's a bit of a high risk country, but they were then saying but it wasn't going to be rolled out domestically. But then here we are with the FA Cup final or whatever it is, and hotels and restaurants and whatever else sort of going on, that you know, that could then impact on that. Yeah, interesting. So you're dead against it. I couldn't care less.
Yeah, I mean, dead against it is probably a bit strong, but I don't agree with it. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
I don't think it's right.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a moment. You don't think it's right, but you've been doing the flow testing. Does that make any difference?
Yeah, because that's a choice. Because I've chosen to do that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Catching up slowly. Okay. I'm on the same page.
But that was a personal choice and a business choice, if you like.
Yeah.
Because I thought that it was the right thing morally to do. Because there are plenty of people out there who will be extremely nervous about it still. You know, if I'm going out to do a residential property survey, I don't know who that individual is going to be. They're being kind enough and good enough to allow me into their property to do that survey so that they can sell their property, but they might have been shielding for 12 months, or they might be particularly vulnerable, or whatever it is. And that was kind of the view I took. And going into schools and things, you know, those are sorts of environments where you might find the virus. And so it was a personal choice. Nobody's forced me to. I don't have to do it.
So I'm catching up now. I'm on the same page. So it's a good thing to have the choice. It's a good thing to have those options out there, but it's what you're pushing back against is it becoming a mandatory forced approach.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. That makes huge sense. And like I say, if I could care, then I'd probably feel similarly, but I don't really care. But then again, I have no intention of going out and socialising with anyone or talking to anyone anyway. So
because you never do that anyway.
No, so. I don't know. And I've spun my whole business online so I can stay at home. So there we are. So, you know, that's the way it goes, I guess. Right, let's move on. Next one we had on our list, wasn't it? It was where do we think it will be used, or what? Sorry, where would we think it would be used in our industry? So let's spin this back to surveying, construction industry, the property industry generally.
I just had a wasp join me.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, well, yes, there's a wasp flying around, so let's hope.
You're not allergic to them, are you?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is.
Quite a big boy, but let's hope he stays away from me.
Have you got a sort of? Is he got a big old thrum going on that's like a super tanker version of the wasp? So he's looking for somewhere to set a nest up, mate. So keep your jaws shut, basically. My brother-in-law I think is allergic to them, so he gets a bit twitchy when they start wandering around because he gets the old anaphylactic shock.
Here he comes. He's coming.
Wait, cool. Yeah, that came past the screen. I panicked there for a moment. Well,
because it's particularly large when he's on camera. But
I was going to say, yes, he was particularly. It's like the size of your head. That's a huge wasp, mate. That's huge. So, from where you're at, just hello, Mr Waspy. So he's obviously attracted to me. It must be my new beard growth that I've
It must be that new rugged look that you've got.
My new rugged look. I want to be like James look. Do you know what? I think I'm going to shave it off. It's itching me like there's no tomorrow. It's a nightmare.
Rather interestingly, he's taken a shine to this. Oh no, you just settled on screen above you.
Right. Okay. So where were we? Oh yes, industry. You can shout at us from
industry.
Yeah. So
yes.
where's it going to impact? Let's start with you and me. So where's it going to impact on you?
I can only assume it will be possibly some of the places that I go into work. So that might be schools that I go into work with education clients. It might be I'm looking to be moved to a new office, hopefully in a month or so, which is a shared managed workspace.
Yeah.
So there may be some restrictions on that. It's a local authority owned property, so they may decide that you've got to have I don't know, you've got to be negative, you've got to do this, that, and the other. Who knows? I guess it might, if hotels, if there's any overnight stays in place and stuff like that, it might impact there. I think that's probably around about it. I can't see that it would become something like a CSCS card or whatever that comes onto a construction site. I can't see that happening.
No, it's not the same sort of thing, is it? Because it's no. But then again, but we're already doing that with sites, social distancing and occupancy levels, and we see that in the shops, in retail as well. Not that I've been to any shops, but I drove past. We've got one near us, just up. I think it's on the A45. It's sort of Rushton Lakes up at Rushton. And that's quite a new shopping centre area. It's not a massive one, but I drove in there the other day because one of my kids wanted to, of all things, have you ever had a Five Guys takeaway?
Yes.
Oh, goodness me, that's your main line and a heart attack with one of those, aren't you?
Yeah.
So my daughter wanted a burger from there, so it was right in the middle of this shopping centre. But there was loads of people in there, and they're all queuing up down the road, because they're only letting certain numbers in the shops, and so we've had that occupancy issue already, haven't we? And everyone seems to be happy with it. This is more, I think, when you're meeting or going into places, isn't it?
Interesting. Yeah, indoors, I think. But I think you come back to that queuing and things. It's just the British trait, isn't it? We're just polite.
Yeah.
We don't. We all like a bit of a complaint, but we don't complain.
Yeah.
At that point, people will complain to the mate afterwards, or write a comment on some web page or something afterwards. They'll not complain to the person. It's like when you're in a restaurant and they'll come and ask you 5 minutes after you started eating, and they'll say, "Everything okay?" And people will go, "Oh yeah," and then somebody will turn to you and go, "This is awful. This is horrible. This food," but nobody will say it to the face.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, I wish they'd just leave us alone so I could eat our food. I don't want to talk to anybody. Yeah, I mean, my first port of call is going online. Basically, I'll go and buy stuff online. I won't go to the shops at the moment. So I'm
but to be honest, I've done that for ages anyway. I'm not much of a shopper unless I have to really be in the mood for it, which is rare. And then I'll quite happily go and, spend a bit of time and actually look at stuff in the flesh, if you like, actual clothes and things, or whatever it might be. But otherwise, I'd rather do it online anyway. Right. Okay. So that brings us nicely on, really, I guess. So interesting your thoughts on this, John. How do you feel about it in our industry?
Well, I think it's an interesting one because I don't really know where our industry's going in the next 6 to 12 months. And we don't actually know if we're going to have another relapse of lockdowns or anything, do we? I mean, it's all very, very up in the air at the moment. So again, it comes back to, do I care if we have a passport in our industry? What if your clients, well, there's a thought. What if one of my clients says you have to have this to work for us? It's part of your pre-qual questionnaire now. There's a thought.
Yeah, how would you feel about that?
I don't know. I'd probably go, oh, okay then. But, and comply.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't know what I'd do. Especially if it wasn't mandatory by the government, and yet there were organisations stating that that's what they felt, I'd maybe have to question whether I agreed with the moral stance on it, and whether I want to work with an organisation who was enforcing people to have, to tick those boxes. I don't know.
Because again, one of the things I was listening to, they were saying that the government aren't going to stipulate it domestically, and then they said, well, what if we're neither going to agree or deny, sort of thing. We're not going to say you have to, we're not going to mandate it, and also we're not going to say you can't, or why are we going to say you can't? We don't know yet. That was the sort of comment. But then, start going back to the hotels, the cinemas, the football stadiums. Those are not owned by the government; they're owned by private companies, and they're stipulating that as a procedure or a process to come into their buildings. So
I think it will all come down to law, because
someone will challenge it, won't they?
Someone will challenge it somewhere with the law, and once they do, then that will set a precedence, and then we'll know exactly whether it will or it won't ever take hold. I think for all industries, never mind just ours. I think our industry, given that we've, with the exception of probably the first few months of the pandemic last year, probably first 2-3 months, we've cracked on as an industry. I don't see an awful lot in ours changing, because there'll be other things that we get involved with and sectors that we probably work in as professionals, or even as construction workers and things like that. But I don't think we will change drastically, because we just
Well, let me throw another one out at you. So health and safety, zero harm. That's these sort of phrases being bounced around. Try not to kill our operatives on site, because that's really not the done thing. What about zero COVID?
But there's measures to do that, and to try and do that without having to enforce people to have. We've had all this social distancing. We've had. I guess it comes down to the fact it's like it. So I thought about this actually when I was thinking. So my business is just me at this stage, but hopefully at some point I'll start to employ. Would I look to enforce it onto my staff? I think given my stance, I probably couldn't, but I might say to them, look, this is why I'm doing it. It's your choice whether you feel that you should do it.
I understand.
I don't think I'd want to force people to do it, because I don't think I have a right to do that.
No, I mean, okay, so back end of last year, I guess. So when it all came out of lockdown, staff started coming back in. My two staff, directly employed staff, work from home and are based 150 miles away from where I am. So every 3 weeks we would go and meet outside in a restaurant outside somewhere and have a day sort of together and meeting and so on. So that was kind of all we did, but we just made sure that we kept it safe and worked again to the criteria of masks and everything. Interestingly, actually, one of my staff members did actually catch COVID from someone else, but
not at one of your gatherings.
No. Fortunately, it was a week before we were due to meet, and it was like, geez, if that had happened a week later and she was asymptomatic and no one would have known, then so I kind of feel I've dodged a bullet there. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think I'm more so. Is it here to stay in our industry? How do I feel about it? I think you're right. I think we've, as an industry, it's been the first time in decades of recessions where we haven't been the brunt of that recessionary, sort of downturn. Not that I would ever wish it on anyone else, but I haven't sat in an experience where it's been affecting an industry, and not felt the pinch. So this time round, it was a bit quiet, wasn't it? And then everyone started to get the hang of social distancing. So this latest lockdown, I don't think it's really been much of an issue, because everyone's got the PPE in place now. Everyone's got the new procedures in place. But do you think, I don't think, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I just think as an industry, we'll just adapt. and we'll adapt to whatever the restrictions are. And I agree
We,
with you.
yeah,
I don't think there's going to be any.
we've always been slow at adapting, and always been slow at implementing change, and going, moving with the times, etc. But as an industry throughout this pandemic, I think the construction has shown that it can adapt quickly. It can be quite agile, and it can still work. So I think as an industry, it's actually been a positive for us, the pandemic. But I don't think I think because there's so much guidance and things around site safety in COVID times, etc. now, I don't think there's going to be an awful lot of change or an awful lot of need, and I can't see any of this happening unless the government enforce it.
Yeah, no, it's certainly an interesting one, and I agree with you. I don't think it's anything like the sort of the CSCS, the health and safety. Health and safety is just a given; it's a must, because we are in such a dangerous industry in that way. I guess the potential for not just a minor injury, the potential for sort of killing people, and it's not ideal. But yes, I don't see this. I think the social distancing thing and those sort of restrictions are easy for us as an industry to cope with. But yeah, I can't see it sort of panning out any further than that, because unless what if you had a site that's got thousands of workforce on it though? If you've got a massive construction site, again, it just comes down to the social distancing, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think. I think a lot of this is talk, and I think just don't see that. And it will all come down to the government. I don't think that individual businesses and things will take a stance on it without some sort of guidance or lead from government.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's too big a legal and HR minefield in all of this for it to be led by any one company. And yeah, I agree with you.
There's no one business that's going to take it on themselves to make the decision that they force their staff to do this, that, and the other. I mean, you've even got care homes at the moment who aren't enforcing that their staff have to have the vaccine, because I think, from a HR point of view, from a legal standpoint, they probably can't.
Yeah,
I think it's a minefield if they go down that route, and I think that's probably why. So I don't think we're going to see anything unless the government decide to implement it and enforce it with law. I don't think we're going to see an awful lot of change. But then surely, we talked about travel and things like that. Surely that is all, other countries and what they do is also going to impact on what happens here.
Oh, massively. I mean, we saw that with just, I guess the things that did impact on us was, back at the beginning of it all was sort of delivery material.
Well, lockdown came. We only did that because Spain, because Italy, France, they all did it, and Germany, and we kind of followed suit because they got it before us, really, didn't they? But yeah, so it's kind of an interesting one. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. Have we talked this out? Do you think? I think we're done. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think we're probably done. We're probably done.
So you don't want one. I don't care. Life's too short, really.
Well, yeah, life's too short. Enjoy it.
So as in our inevitable way, let's go for it. Don't get a passport. Get a passport. Don't get a passport. Wash your hands.
But if you want to get a passport, get a passport. But if you don't want to get a passport, maybe think about it, but don't get a passport.
Yeah, so wash your face, wash your hands, and
don't lick any strangers.
Yeah, no, thanks for
take care, everyone.
Yeah, cool. What an interesting topic. So we will. I'm sure we could revisit this in a few weeks, see what's happened. Maybe not in such a long podcast, maybe in a 5-minute one or something like that. But no, look forward to the next one, mate. Catch up with you soon.
Likewise. Cheers, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. I hear you did the Hot Topic Mind Map forum recently, John, didn't you? So you want to tell me what that's all about?
Yeah, it was really exciting, actually. So every year, twice a year, April and August, we get everyone together. I say everyone, about 80 people. That is naturally everyone together, and we talk hot topics. And we did it just recently, and we had 120 people book to attend. It's a free event, and we normally only expect about half to turn up, but this time about 85 people turned up, which was fantastic.
Wow.
2 hours it went on for, so having everyone in the room for 2 hours is amazing that they all kind of hung in there. But we mapped out. We've got a mind map that we created probably 2 or 3 years ago. So every 6 months we revisit it and see what the latest topics are. So we added in things like the new cladding stuff that's come out from the RICS. We talked around also the latest updates to PI, and that's all I can remember right now off the top of my head. But we had loads of input. I think we probably added another 15 or 20 topics to it, and it's already huge. I mean, if you try and print it A3, probably about 4 A3s.
Wow.
Size. So, and we also updated our COVID version as well, because obviously that being a hot topic, hopefully that won't be a hot topic for much longer or in the future. So yeah, so that's what we did. So we had a forum, 80 people turned up, gave us lots of input and everything. Fantastic session, and we mapped out what we think are the industry hot topics. Perfect for anybody who's either prepping for the APC now or prepping for the APC in 6 months' time.
Well, it sounds great, John, but there'll be people out there saying, how can I get hold of a copy?
Now, luckily you asked. No, we obviously will make it available. So the 2-hour recording is available, and it basically comes with a little package. It costs £10 and £10 plus VAT, so just over £10. And it's you get the big mind map, you get the COVID mind map, and you get the 2-hour recording for about 3 or 6 months. I haven't decided yet actually which one we're doing it on, and all that money is going to charity.
Great. Which charity? One particular?
There's a number actually. There's one that we support at the moment as a business locally. It's it's called Just Us, and it's a guy who is educating people who are either homeless or on sort of they don't have their own home, as it were, to get them into social housing so that they're not sort of discriminated against, or at least they can have a roof over their head. So he's doing a grand job locally. This guy I know, and he's doing a really good job there. So we support him, and then a couple of good causes. We've got local kids gymnastics club, which we support. They're looking to get a new venue, so we're kind of helping them with the cost of that. And also local kids football and also netball. So lots of little sporty things in the village that I live in and in the region area, but also slightly broader afield. And if there's anything left over, then we tend to throw some money at Lionheart from time to time as well.
Great. So people just basically come onto your website and download a copy.
Yeah, obviously literally just Deliver.com/hot topics, HOTTOPICS, if I spelt that correctly.
Sounded
Hot topics, and then that'll take you to that page. You can pre-order it at the moment. It will be available in the next few days.
Great stuff.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
I might get one myself.
Well, if you want, you can just give me a tenner. Cool. Thanks so much. Take care. Hello there, and thank you for joining us for our latest episode of the SurveYOUR podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed making it. Don't forget to subscribe at all your favourite podcast providers: Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and so on. Also on Twitter and Instagram at SurvPod, that's SURVPOD. You can also get us on YouTube. Click the subscribe button, and don't forget to click the little bell. It tells you when we post our latest content, and on our webpage, survepod.com. Don't forget to leave us your reviews, comments, suggestions, and of course any questions. And finally, if you want to come along, join us at a future episode of the SurveYOUR podcast, send us an email to survepod@gmail.com. If you like what you see and hear, tell your friends. Let's put surveying on the map. Stay safe, wash your hands, and don't lick any strangers. Bye-bye for now. The SurveYOUR podcast is a copyright Deliver and Invise Limited production. We suggest you come up with your own ideas and not copy ours. Thank you. Catch you again soon. Bye-bye.